Get me some rope. Tie me to dream. Give me the hope to run out of steam. Somebody said, it could be here. We could be roped up, tied up, dead in a year. I can't count the reasons I should stay. One by one, they all just fade away. This is a discussion of the television show Community, of which I'm the biggest fan, and I'm joined by someone else who I believe is the show's biggest fan, Leo Vader.
Thank you so much.
And I'm also joined by Jacob Geller, who is the show's also its biggest fan.
I would say I'm the biggest fan. Yeah, glad to be here.
And then finally, surprise guest, Community's biggest fan, Benjamin Reeves.
Number one.
You
Live
did it.
Die. Here I am.
Welcome, man.
Yeah. Big fan of just gatherings in general.
Oh, yeah, not even necessarily the TV show, just people getting together.
Community,
Three's
ensemble,
Company, anything.
entourage, posse.
Yeah, huge fan.
Yeah, so we all love the show dearly. We've picked out favorite episodes, which I don't know about you guys, but I actually found surprisingly hard. Just because like there's a lot that I kind of treat at the same tier and don't really have a lot that bubble up and exceed necessarily. But I figured we'd talk about some of our favorite episodes, favorite bits, favorite characters, and just kind of dive deep into why we appreciate this show so much. We can start. Reeves, let's start with you because we haven't heard from you like publicly in a while. I feel like I don't feel like you're even sending out tweets anymore. Is everything okay? Blink twice if you're okay.
Yeah, I'm living in a cave, just studying my Jedi magic now.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'm still working for Firaxis. I stopped working for Game Informer, and I'm like, do I need to tweet anymore? And I was just like, I don't know. I'll tweet when I feel like it. And it turns out for the last 5 months, I just haven't felt like it. So
no, that's
someday,
good. That's
maybe it's just building up inside of me, like some calcified block that'll eventually come barfing out. But I'm still alive.
Look forward to that day.
I'm gonna tweet. I'll definitely tweet when the game's coming out and I can start talking about what I've been doing. So look forward to that.
Firaxis.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, tell me, Reeves, what was your sort of introduction to Community? Like when did you start watching it and how did you find it?
That's a good question. I did not start watching it when it first came on the air. I don't think a ton of people did, right? Wasn't it like kind of underrated for the first few seasons?
I think it was me. I think me and my wife watched the pilot, and I think that was about it.
Also, the story of the show is it was like never popular for the entire time it was on, except for a just absolutely fanatical group of fans, of which Kyle and I were part of.
I'm proud to say I was also there episode 1, watching it on NBC.com.
Wow.
Streaming service. Well,
since I'm the biggest fan, I came in around season 3. I ran into I don't know, I was like just hanging out with my roommate and he was a friend of a friend was over and he was like, Community is like the best show on TV right now. And I'm like, what, really? And I'm like trying to challenge him. I'm like, what about The Office? Or what about like Seinfeld? You know, just like thinking about these epic shows and sitcoms that
to be clear, Seinfeld had been off the air for a long time at that point.
Not true. There's a Seinfeld episode playing on TV right now, Kyle.
You know, that's a good
somewhere.
I think I was just like, hey, what about, is it really better than, you know, all these shows, you know? And that was kind of in the heyday of like Arrested Development was like, it kind of at its peak popularity, I want to say. Anyway, he was like, he stood his ground. He's like, no, Community is like the best show ever. So you got to watch it. So I started watching it. I was like, oh, and I started from season 1 and I'm like, this is fine. I don't get it. And then it was, you know, the end of season 1 when it really starts to branch out and become this crazy, like mind screw, you know, like it starts to do all these things with genre in fun ways that I really started to fall in love with it and became its number 1 fan.
End of season 1, where the paintball episode will probably come up at many points, but I feel like I remember watching that with my family on TV. Jeff falls asleep in his car and wakes up to the campus destroyed and covered in paint. And throughout the rest of the episode, I remember very clearly making some joke about like, obviously this isn't happening. Of course this is just a dream he's having in his car. Like, they're not fooling us with this. And then it just committed, and it continued to commit. Yeah.
That one's fun because that was the first episode I ever heard about, was that paintball episode.
Yeah.
And I still wasn't watching the show because it was season 1, but people were talking about it. Matt Miller from the Game Informer office was talking about it. He was watching it, number 2 fan in the world. But yeah, he said that was cool. And so when I started watching, I was like waiting for that to happen. But it's actually like, I think it's an episode or two before that is the one with the chicken fingers.
Yeah.
Is that season one?
That's actually before paintball even. So I'm like, oh, they started to play with it. Everybody thinks of the paintballs when it found its footing, but I think they were actually figuring out the formula before that.
Yeah. So what about you, Leo? Was it you were there from the beginning, just word of mouth? You heard it was interesting?
It was a new show on NBC's Thursday night comedy, which like had prestige at that point. You know, it joined The Office and 30 Rock. The idea that those three shows were on at the same night.
Well, it's even more interesting than that because Community debuted on the same night as Parks and Rec. Both of those shows came out like the same season. And Parks and Rec was kind of the more like mainstream one that was like, oh, people like this because it's like The Office. And then Community was like the weird one that no one except me and some friends watched.
What about you, Jacob? Was it like just because you had high expectations for NBC comedies at the time? I mean, I did too, for sure.
It was the one that I was least invested in of those, like The Office, big fan, 30 Rock, big fan, Parks and Rec. I knew those people, and then Community was just kind of this random one. But it was also like kind of in the early days of Hulu where I almost couldn't believe I could just go online and like watch a TV episode that had been on the night before. And so I was doing a lot more like rewatching of TV than I had done in the past. And so I could just go back and like watch these Community episodes 3 times.
In the super early Hulu days, it was like free online and no ads because they weren't able to sell any ads yet. It was like the perfect way to watch TV.
I thought maybe one of you guys would be in the same boat, but I similarly was really liked, The Office and 30 Rock and was into those shows. But the thing that really made me like, oh, I'm going to watch that. I was still DVRing stuff at the time. I was like, I'm going to DVR that for sure. Was Donald Glover. Because I knew him from Derek Comedy, the YouTube channel. And to me, it seemed like this moment in time where things were sort of starting to overlap. Like those things I saw on YouTube that were really funny, but like felt like its own thing was now sort of like slowly moving into mainstream. And one of the people, arguably the funniest person from Derek Comedy, was going to be one of the starring people on this TV show. And that was 100% the reason I wanted to watch it, just because I like Derek Comedy so much. And then it was like the pilot I was on board so quickly with like John Oliver's character and like there was one joke in particular in the first episode where he tries to text Jeff something and just totally messes up how to shorten words. And it was such a simple, like modern contemporary joke that I just hadn't really heard yet of like people making jokes about text messaging that I was like weirdly like really on board and really fell in love with it. And the speech where he breaks the pencil and everyone shudders because he gave the pencil a name. I was just like, this is great. I was on board with the pilot. Like I really loved it right away.
It's fun watching the pilot now because you can tell that it's a pilot and the room they're in is very different than the room they become to be in, if that makes sense. That
it looks so much more expensive. Like, they have like a lot more like outdoor shots and like stuff, and it's just like they lose all that money immediately.
Yeah, I bet comparing it to Parks and Rec, I bet Parks and Rec was a lot cheaper to produce than Community. I could be way off about that. I'm sure the actors' salaries really ballooned pretty quickly as the show got more and more popular. But like, just on a sort of like how to shoot it and like what the sets and stuff are like. I mean, Parks and Rec those early seasons was just like a handful of sets, and Community was like already doing like Goodfellas parodies and stuff.
And how expensive do you think Chevy Chase was? Do you think he had quite a handsome paycheck there?
But it's like even then he had such a reputation as an asshole that like I don't know if he was cheaper because of that.
Well, the story goes, supposedly, Dan Harmon talked about in an interview back before there was just like they wouldn't even look each other in the eyes. I'm sure they're still on terrible terms at this point, but that Chase just like showed up to auditions. They didn't seek him out. They didn't apparently Chevy Chase was just ready to get back to work, and the script came across his desk or whatever, and he liked it, so he went out for an audition, and that became a whole conversation with them, which is like, well, if Chevy Chase is in the show, that becomes like a weird it becomes the Chevy Chase show because he's the biggest name and he hasn't done anything in a while. And that became like a weird decision for them to make. Like they never, it wasn't written for Chevy Chase or with Chevy Chase in mind or anything like that. And at least that's the story that I've heard. I don't know. Who knows how true it is.
Yeah. And it never felt like the show was trying to center around Chevy Chase. And I know he's a pain to work with and probably wouldn't have made that easy if he was. But yeah, it feels like the show's never trying to focus on him anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to correct myself. The Parks and Rec and Community were the same year. They weren't the same day. They were both 2009 at different points.
I still would have assumed Parks was first. I wouldn't have put them that close.
It's first, but only by like a couple months.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of our favorite episodes. We can talk about some of our favorite bits and stuff like that. Reeves, you want to share one of your favorite episodes? Should we do 3, 2, 1? I don't even have mine ordered. That's how much I struggled. So yeah, just share one of your favorite episodes and
yeah, I have a clear number 1 for me, but the other 2 are kind of like, I can go either way. So I'll start with them if you want to do that. But yeah, the one I picked out was Basic Lupine Urology, which is season 3, episode 17, which is the Law and Order spoof.
Oh,
it's
sure.
the one where like they're doing a science project on this yam and their yam dies, and then it quickly kind of. And the one thing I love about that is it's funny, but it's kind of funnier because they play it super straight half the time. And it's also just so impressive how much it feels like Law and Order. Like if you watch it, like it's the camera work, it's like the set dressing, like even though you can tell they're working on a budget. Well, Law and Order is probably on a budget too. Maybe that helps. But yeah, it just sort of feels like one of those procedural shows. It's so impressive.
Yeah. That's the thing. They did. It's not sketch comedy. It's like proper homage, I feel like.
I think that's one of the ones where they start messing with the theme song, which they kind of did in later seasons, and I always loved, where they did like a Law and Order theme song, but for the Greendale campus, which just felt like, oh, they care so much about this. They're like even changing the beginning of the show.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, what about you, Leo? What's one of your favorites?
Let's pop over to my list. The episode I remember really, really blowing my mind for the committing thing I mentioned earlier. Epidemiology, episode 6 of the second season, the Halloween episode, which is a full-on zombie episode. There's no reorienting it, retconning it to have been something else. There's a legit like zombie breakout at Greendale, and they barely avoid everybody being killed, and then the show continues after that. And that was such a thrilling episode, like seeing the characters die one by one and not really knowing what was happening or what was going to happen. That stuck with me a lot.
There's a moment in that episode that I really love where Troy has the alien's power loader armor, and it looks like he's going to have his hero moment where he breaks in. He's going to fight through the zombies and get to, I don't know what, they had to get to the AC vent or something to turn on the air circulation or whatever, and it totally looks like he's gonna do it, and then like within seconds he gets bit and he's like, all right, fine, thanks guys, and just throws his hands up and you're like, all right, you got me.
And there's also like, I don't know why I thought this would work, like this cardboard power loader.
Right.
Why I assumed I'd be able to fight in this.
This episode is 100%. This is on my list too, Leo. On my 3 favorites. I just like, it was one of those. I remember like watching it. Maybe it was either on DVR like the night of, or airing, whatever. It doesn't matter. But I remember just watching it and being like, I can't believe this is like NBC television. Like just like a zombie movie that's not a dream episode or anything. It's just like totally canonized that they're here. And then like the bit that kills me, and I will occasionally look up on YouTube every now and then, is the cat just jumping constantly. Like, was it like 3 or 4 times in a row? The cat just keeps
Is someone throwing it?
That's right. It's so good.
And that whole episode is also like scored by ABBA, which is the other kind of amazing thing about it. It's just like, it works so well, and it's just like this ABBA themed zombie apocalypse.
I remember the week it aired, a friend on social media or something was just like, I can't believe like on network television there's a sitcom with zombies set to like the soundtrack of ABBA, and I'm like, I can't either. Like, I can't believe that someone signed that check and was like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and Shirley hooking up with Chang and that becoming like a plot point, like it having actual ramifications later in the season.
Yeah, that's right, because she had his baby, right? What a weird, like,
spoilers.
ongoing... I mean, I don't know. Is that...
Yeah.
But they didn't do that very often. They didn't have... I guess they had, like, the romance stuff, but they didn't have a ton of, like, ongoing storylines.
Yeah, not too many. Yeah, I mean, you can pop into a single episode pretty, like, and you'll be okay, and to get like a good episode. It doesn't. You might lose out on some like recurring bits and stuff, but yeah, Jacob, how about you? One of your favorites?
Yeah, so my first one is really early, but I feel like it's one of the ones that I kind of like locked in, which is season 1, episode 3, Introduction to Film, which is the one where Abed makes the first of several documentaries in the show. But it has it's like Abed is taking a film class and he's making a movie about his mom and dad. And he in just kind of like peak line very early in the season, he says, Jeff, you'll be playing my father. And Jeff says, I don't want to be your father. And Abed says, that's perfect. You already know your lines. and then like at the end, it's just this kind of like, yeah, perfect little community moment where he makes this movie that is so weird and sloppily edited and yet somehow like very moving still. It kind of like it works emotionally even though it just should not. It's great. And that's also the episode with the kind of Dead Poet Society teacher, which just has one of my favorite bits where he's standing at a coffee shop and looks at the menu and then says, I will have, and rips the menu in half, a birthday cake.
There's also the scene where they all get up on the desk and one of the students just falls and like really injures themselves. And he's like, whatever.
He's like, all right, seize the day.
Yes. Jacob, that episode was also on my list. Basically,
was it really?
Yeah, because of that line, Jeff, you'll be playing my father. I don't want to be your father. And then, which is funny on its own, like in the moment, that's very funny. And then it gets pulled around to the end. And in that edit where he's like, I don't want to be your father, it is both like a funny callback and just a gutting emotional line of where like you really understand what Abed has to deal with. And I was like, God, that's just smart. That's just some brilliant.
It also there is also the Abed line that I love where he says, he says his dad like used to have a food stand, and he says 9/11 was pretty much the 9/11 of the falafel business. I think it's a very funny line. I mean, it's interesting watching the show that some characters change a lot. Like Britta in the first couple episodes is basically unrecognizable to later Britta, but like Abed is just like Britta there from the very beginning. He's just like, he is him from the word go.
Yeah. Jeff sees his value in the first episode, right? I think that's the line. Yeah. All right, Reeves.
Go ahead.
Well,
I was just going to tag on to like you were talking about that line playing two ways. It was funny, but also heartfelt, and I think that's one thing I really loved about the show is like it, like most good shows, is funny, but then also works on another level where you actually care about these characters, and you grow to like them, but then there's like some genuine character growth, and you're watching them interact with each other is actually pretty sweet and fun to watch these people become friends and have meaningful friendships. And that's one of the things I really liked about the show, just in general.
Yeah. Well, actually, so we ended up hitting two of mine, but I'll go ahead and share my third, which is...
This sounds like cheating to me, guys.
Oh, hey, I'm sorry. I don't make the rules, even though I established them before we got on this call.
Make other episodes.
I have a whole list of bonus episodes to go through, by the way, too. I'm sure you guys do as well. But season 2, another early one, episode 9, conspiracy theories and interior design, when Jeff makes up the fake conspiracy theory class, and then it just like snowballs into an actual class. Just there's that bit like right before the first commercial break where Annie is just like, do you know what's happening? And Jeff's like, I have no idea, with this huge smile on his face, because it's like, it's just happening to all work out for him. And the way, with Professorson, And it gets so confusing in the end, and it's so ridiculous. And there's so many like fake outs and fake guns, and like so many people getting fake shot in like the last 10 minutes of the episode. It's another one that's just a maze, and I just love it for that.
Every rewatch of this show I've done, I get to that episode, and it starts, and he finds the class or whatever, and I'm like, how does this end? I have no memory of the explanation for this. And then sure enough, a month later, it's gone again. It's just so convoluted, which is like the point of it. Very funny.
But it does work, like in the context of the episode. I feel like it makes sense and it's funny. Yeah. But like you just can't keep it in your head.
I think that one is the one where the dean is writing about like the time traveling, like time desk or something, and then during the like last shootout, he has that line that's like, "But were this hoodie be a time hoodie or something?"
Would that this hoodie were a time hoodie?
It's like a terribly written line that he's just like crying.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this was also on my list, Kyle.
Oh, good.
And that in Shootout too, there's so many like twists and turns where they keep turning on the dean, and like turns out Jeff's "No, I'm alive." And there's some line where he's like, "Stop double crossing people," and he's like, "I can't. I just keep going with whoever suggests it." Like,
that also has who's it? The actor's name is Craig Kakowski, who plays Officer Kakowski, who is like just a little tiny joke that comes back occasionally, where he's like, "Guys, I interact with you all the time. Like, I know you guys," and they're just always like, I don't remember you," which is just always so funny to me.
That's funny.
Go ahead, Ben.
The other great thing about talking over people, the other great thing about this episode is there's like a subplot with Abed and Troy where they're building pillow forts and blanket forts, which is a great subplot on its own. That's an awesome episode, but then it feeds directly into the next episode, which is basically this Ken Burns-esque documentary about the two forts warring back and forth, which is just an amazing parody of a war film in and of itself, or a war documentary, I should say. It's a great doubleheader as those two episodes back to back.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, completely different style, that Ken Burns episode. It's wild how little it feels like an episode of Community.
I was going to say with the cop, there's just like a very funny ongoing like bit of just like everyone else at the school knows the study group as this like intensely self-centered and annoying group where like every time you get an outside perspective, everyone hates like all of them, not just like Jeff or kind of like the understood to be annoying ones, but it's just like, no, you're all so annoying and you only care about yourself.
Yeah, that's totally true. Reeves, I guess we've talked about two of yours, so this would be your maybe your number one. I don't know. You said you had a number one.
What does order mean anymore, Kyle? Seems like you don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah, you said pick three of your favorites. The first one that came to mind, I was like, this is probably my favorite episode because I've thought about it before, is Remedial Chaos Theory, which is season 3, episode 3, which is the one where they're playing Yahtzee or something. And and they have to go pick up a pizza, and Jeff's like, all right, I'm gonna roll the dice, and Abed's like, as soon as you do this, Jeff, you're creating 6 different timelines. And then the show is broken up and they explore all 6 timelines, and it's just, not only is it funny, it's like this mastercraft in just how to put together an intricate, I don't even know what to call it, like it's an amazing episode. But just one timeline, you see that Annie has a gun in her purse, and then like that pays off like, 20 minutes later when it accidentally goes off and shoots Pierce. And then it's obvious it's also the creation of the Dark Universe, which plays in to the show later on. It's a great episode.
It's also like just a pop culture touch point. I feel like people say Darkest Timeline, not realizing it's a Community is sort of the progenitor of that, And that I feel like, just because of the way storytelling is going lately, like someone was joking about Everything Everywhere All at Once and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, someone being like, oh my gosh, multiverses are so hot right now, which I just thought was a very strange like thing to point to as being like, people like multiverses. And which is true. I mean, I enjoy them, but I feel like this was one of the first sort of main.
Better than Year of the Bow, right?
What was that?
Said better than Year of the Bow.
You're the Bow.
You don't remember You're the Bow from like?
No, I don't know what
6
you're talking
years ago?
about.
Oh, okay.
Look,
Was it when like every character had a bow?
Yeah, I think it was the year that the first Horizon came out, and like there was one
right,
of the
okay.
games that came out, and
I thought you were talking about a movie or something. I was very confused.
that was the year that You're the Bow, the film came out.
But that was like
Luigi.
Right, you're Luigi, you're the Bow, you're the multiverse. But yeah, I mean now like Rick and Morty spends so much time with multiverses and stuff like that, and I feel like this was like maybe Dan Harmon sort of kicking the tires on the sort of loose idea.
It's a really great episode for showing what each character adds to the group and what happens when how it all falls apart when one person leaves. And I feel like Community, one of its best strengths above other sitcoms is like all the characters are so strong that any pairing off of them or grouping of them, any combination is gold. So many shows, even like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or something, will kind of rely on the same pairings of characters because they just work together. But Community is like so interested in exploring like what each character might get from every other character, and pairings you wouldn't expect, like Jeff and Shirley ending up as some of the best episodes. Community was really, really strong in the character department for that.
Yeah, for sure. Leo, you ready to give up another one?
Sure. Season 5, episode 4, Cooperative Polygraphy.
Ding, ding, ding. I got this one too.
This one?
This is after Pierce dies.
Oh, right.
The guy comes in and reads Pierce's will and gives them all polygraph tests and questions to determine if any of them killed Pierce before they get his bequeathments.
It's the sperm one. It's the one about Pierce's sperm.
Yeah, there's a line where Troy is like, I don't know if it's just because he is dead or because it's sperm, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah. It was the episode they did for when after COVID happened, when a bunch of sitcoms got together and did read-throughs of old scripts. It was the one they did with Pedro Pascal instead of Walton Goggins. And that line where he's handing out the sperm to everybody and he talks to Abed and he's like, did you know nothing you ever did ever made any sense to me? And I never understood you. And Abed says yes. And he says, here's your sperm. And Pedro Pascal just like completely unable to get through that for minutes.
I haven't finished that. I should just watch that, right? Like I should just sit down as if I'm watching an episode of Community and watch that whole read through.
It's very good.
Oh yeah.
There's also, I think Pedro Pascal can also not say like, Pierce gives Jeff like a bottle of whiskey or something, and he's like, here's this bottle of whiskey so you won't be tempted to drink this vial of even finer sperm. There's another one that Pascal just like, he was like crying.
Oh, that's perfect.
Earlier in the episode, there's another good Troy bit I remember of where they're putting them all up to lie detectors. And Troy just gets nervous. He's like, all right, I did it. I killed him. And they're like, he's lying. He's like, and Troy's like, oh, good.
Just wanted to be
like,
sure.
I just had to check. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this one is also on my list. There are a number of like bottle episodes, and when Jenna Stieber was on the show on MinMax a couple of weeks ago, she talked about the pen episode as being her favorite bottle episode. Yeah. But this is my favorite one for just like all of their kind of secrets about how they've like wronged each other coming out and them having to learn to like make peace with it. It's very good. That
was something I noticed or stuck out to me more on my latest rewatch, which was like 2 years ago now. Was just how vile they all are to each other, how often they screw each other over, and the fact that they all seem to do it equally, I guess with the exception of Pierce, that it kind of binds them together as a group. It's so often a plot of an episode hinges on one of them screwing another over.
Because it's like in that one, you know, even the kind of good characters, it's like, oh, well, Annie's nice. But in that one, Annie's secret is like she has essentially been like dosing their water with like Adderall or some like similar thing.
Right.
And Abed is like, you changed the chemistry of my brain. And it's like a very serious accusation.
Yeah.
Is that also the one where he basically figures out their menstrual cycles? Like he's been charting. He accidentally charts their menstrual cycles. He's like, oh, I noticed they were different.
Yeah.
And he started charting their site, and then he realized what he was charting. And then when they realize it, they're like, what? This is so messed up.
I think that was the bottle episode with the pen. I think, right? I think that was the first one. But
it
yeah,
turns out it was the monkey.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Jacob, how about you? Do you have a?
Okay. So my one that I haven't said yet is season 2, episode 10, mixology certification, which is the one where Troy thinks he is turning 20, but in fact is turning 21 because his mom told him that he was 10 twice because 5th grade is really hard for everyone.
Yeah.
And it's another kind of like perfect everyone gets something to do episode where they go out to a bar and Annie is nervous about using a fake ID, and so she like completely assumes this character of like a woman from Corpus Christi, Texas. And Shirley, they find like a bunch of pictures of her drunk at the bar, and which says like don't let her back in, and like this one has Paul F. Tompkins as a guest star, who's like a gay guy who's talking to Abed about like essentially, like the Stargate or whatever, and he has the line, he's like, how could you talk to a man for 45 minutes and not realize that he's hitting on you? And Abed is like, oh, I realized it quite early. I just really like talking about Stargate.
I'm glad you mentioned Paul F. because he almost sticks out to me in that episode just because I love Paul F. Tompkins, but it's also like one of the few occasions where he's not wearing a suit for some reason. Yeah. It's so strange to see him just kind of dressed normally.
But I mean, the real core of the episode is the main character of Community, Troy, who is just kind of like learning to. It is an episode where he's like trying to learn how to be an adult, and then is seeing all of these people who he thinks of as adults, like Jeff and Britta and Shirley, just like completely melt down and kind of not be able to function. And it ends with like him driving them home, and it is a very much like he is kind of assuming maturity because that is what he has to do. And it's just like Donald Glover is just such a freaking good actor that he's able to kind of like sell these beats as funny, but also emotionally meaningful. It's great. It's a great ep.
That's another good example too of an episode that's not a parody of anything, and they're not like going off the wall crazy, but it's still like super genuine and has a bunch of funny moments, as you just said, but then also it's, heartfelt. So yeah, it's a good choice.
Leo, do you have any more? I think we've all gone through ours.
Yeah, certainly got more to talk about, but the number 3 on my list of 3, if you're ready to have this conversation about season 6, the penultimate episode, Wedding Videography, also known as the incest episode.
Yeah.
Now there's a man who knows how to marry his sister.
Oh, God, I actually wanted to like talk about what's his name, Elroy Patashnik, for a while, because like when season 6 was so strange, and I love Keith David, he's great, but I was like, okay, so they're bringing him in, is he gonna be like a Pierce stand-in? Are they kind of trying to hot swap them? And I like wasn't sure if he was gonna mesh like with the group. And after finishing season 6 and like watching it again in the last couple of years, like he has like become one of my favorite characters. Like his bit in that episode of just encouraging white people and just the most mundane things. It's like, oh boy, you sure know how to pick out a piece of broccoli. Or like, what's the one where he's like, I've gone too far, other than the Marion Cousins was like, look at this guy's pants. This guy knows pants. And it's such a good bit, and he just kills it. He is so funny. He is so great in that show. Like I didn't know what to expect with him, and I just end up loving him. There's the episode where everyone kind of makes fun of him behind his back for dressing old, and he walks in with a shirt that just says 2015, and he's just like, is this modern enough for you guys? It kills me. I love. He's seriously one of my favorite characters. I wish if there were a movie to come, or like another season or something, I would hope that he would get to like be a big part of it and like get to be highlighted again, because he didn't get enough time with just that single season, which wasn't even the full season.
Yeah, him with Troy and Shirley would be great to see.
I mean, both of them. Season 6 it's so weird that it's kind of hard to appreciate the things that it does well just like individually, but like him and Frankie, the other new person, like they're both great. Like they could have been in it from the beginning. There's that thing early on when Frankie is like leaving and at a job interview and she's giving this like very monologue of like, I'm like a focused, career driven person and I'm no nonsense, but things get done. And then the interviewer is like, do you think people talk like that? Like, what are you doing? Is this sort of bit?
Yeah, and then she realizes where she belongs, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Leo, I went on an Elroy tirade, but what is it about that episode that makes it one of your favorites?
No, I definitely wanted to bring up the encouraging white people bit. But yeah, no, I think you guys are so spot on about those characters. It's like no one could ever replace Troy or Shirley, but they like really... No, I guess I won't even say they got close. It's like they didn't try. They introduced like new characters with new dynamics. That is exactly like the only way to add a character to Community.
Yeah.
That episode in season 5 also, they had what's his name from Breaking Bad? Mike Ehrmantraut.
Oh,
right.
Who was very good. He had the thing where he was drawing cartoons of ducks.
Yes.
It was like so a great bit.
And he and Abed had an interesting dynamic. There was like the one episode where he like, doesn't he handcuff Abed to like a table or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the first character who doesn't tolerate Abed.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
I also I love the end of that episode where it's like a really weird fourth wall break, but also like stays.
I was going to bring this up, Kyle. Like, yeah,
where
I laughed so hard. Yeah.
So because they're talking about marrying cousins, and it's actually Matt Gorley, who is now like a co-host on the Conan O'Brien podcast, like plays a writer trying to convince Dan Harmon to keep this cousin marrying thing. And I love just Harmon just does a little bit of like no dialogue acting where he's like, but whatever, fine. If it's that important to you, you can appear at the end of the episode and talk about how cool it is to marry cousins.
Yeah, and it's filmed kind of like a PSA or something. Like this guy really wants to get it off his chest. Like, hey, this is actually legal in a couple of states or something. It's like...
and I don't know if Gorley I don't think he was a writer on the show or anything. He's probably just an actor hired for that bit. But
yeah,
it's just
he
so
was
funny.
I mean, I think that one also is another weird bit of casting is like the woman getting married is Erin McGathy, who was I was a big Harmontown listener. That was one of the first podcasts that I was really kind of like listening to weekly. And Dan Harmon had this whole, very kind of, it probably put too much of his public life into his content, but was like very publicly married and then got divorced, fairly quickly and whatever. But it was all like, as just a consumer of kind of Harmon content, it was weirdly exciting to be in on all that.
And to see her play a larger role.
Yeah, I mean, and she did a good job. She's a good actor.
Yeah, she's great. I had a bunch of bonus episodes that I really love as well. I like that we can kind of rapid fire. I don't know. Do you guys have similar lists or?
Yeah, I just have like moments I want to talk about.
Moments that I'd bring up.
Well, let's do that. Jacob, let's talk about a couple moments.
Okay. One of my favorite moments, Troy and Abed singing Somewhere Out There to the like Irish jig to lure their mouse back. Do you remember this episode?
Vaguely.
Where it was the one where Chang was like sad about his ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever, and it's Environment Day, and so the dean thinks that he's hired Green Day the band, but it's actually Green Day, like an Irish folk band who comes and Troy and Abed like have a fight, and they're trying to lure back this mouse for a science class, and so they sing Somewhere Out There from An American Tale, and it's just like, again, it's like, why is this emotional? Why is this like making me tear up a little bit?
Leo, you have any bits you want to highlight?
I'm trying to remember which episode it's in, but Bear Down for Midterms.
Yes.
And then Chang like crying because they don't want to use his slogan, and they go with it, and then they find out he's like about that bear attack, and he's like, "That's why I thought of that." That's one of the funniest jokes in any sitcom ever.
And then I think about it like pretty frequently, where they changed to fat dog for midterms, and they're like, "Don't sweat it, fat dog."
Oh my
There's a
god.
brand new dance based on an old phrase.
Oh, that is
they were,
making
like,
me
tearing
cry
up
just
with-
remembering it. That the fat dog line at the end, like the bear down on it thing is funny in and of itself, but then like they tag on the fat dog, and like they change the bear costumes to dogs by just adding ears to them. That's so good.
Reeves, do you have any moments to highlight?
Yeah, I was gonna bring up
Wipe your
one
tears
of
first.
one of the other moments I remember making me cry when I first watched it because it's so heartwarming. There's the scene where, and it's like one of the earlier seasons where Chevy Chase, like Pierce, is trying to screw with everybody as he wants to do, right? But one of the ways he screws with Troy is by having LeVar Burton come down to meet him, and Troy just totally freezes up, and then he's like, "I told you a million times, I want a signed picture of LeVar Burton. I don't want to meet him."
Yes, you can't.
I don't know why
disappoint a
that's-
picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't disappoint a picture just screaming that in the
no,
bathroom.
I mean,
yeah, so good.
I watched this episode tonight. I just watched like a couple kind of scattered ones. I think this might be the funniest like scene of the entire series is just LeVar Burton walking in, Troy freezing, and then it cutting to him like screaming in a closed room, just like great. And then there's the thing where he's in the bathroom and he's like singing Reading Rainbow and crying.
Yeah.
God, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a scene too later on where LeVar Burton's like, "Butterfly in the sky." It's just like Troy's like just like about to melt down.
I remember, Reeves, we would talk about Community sometimes at Game Informer, and you were kind of just getting into it. And one bit that really made you laugh that didn't stand out to me, but now on the rewatches, it really makes me laugh, is when they find the trampoline, and there's the gardener who in their flashbacks they realize is like super racist, and he has the swastika tattoo on his chest. And it just, the flashback scene is just him pointing to it and goes, "It's going to be a maze."
Yeah, because it's also in the context of like they find out he's like a white nationalist.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
Then they flash back. Oh, there were so many signs, and like there were 3 in a row of like slowly escalating, and the last one's like, "Oh, he has a swastika," and they just totally like, "Oh, it's a maze, whatever."
It's going to be a maze.
Yeah. There was another one where I remember us talking about there was like a doubleheader. There was like 2 seasons in a row where Abed takes a class, and the first one I think is like, "Who's the boss?" It's about who's the boss.
Yes.
Like, who was the boss? And he's like, "It was Angela." And like he kind of destroys the teacher or something.
Yeah,
And then
that's so good. He figures out who the boss is, and it just totally upends this professor's like whole academic career, right?
And then I can't remember what the follow-up was. It was like What's Happening or something, and he's like, "What was happening?" And it breaks Abed's brain a little bit.
Well,
there's the Nicolas Cage one.
That's
where,
what it was.
where Abed goes too deep on Cage and kind of has a meltdown.
The best
He's good at
/ only good Nick Cage impression I've seen to date is Abed's Nick Cage. It's so funny and so equally committed as Nick Cage.
Yeah, and the whole bit, if you're unfamiliar, is there's a class, is Nick Cage a good actor? And Abed just can't answer. He never arrives at an answer if whether he's good or bad.
I think about the Shirley line where she's like, "If I spent 40 years making 3 movies a year speaking at random volumes, I might also win an Oscar."
That is really good.
There's another Abed impression bit where they're doing, it's the one where they find a drawing of what looks like him in a textbook, and it turns out to be white Abed, but they're like trying to get him to be romantic. And he does like a very good Don Draper impression on Annie, who is like briefly kind of smitten, and it's like it works like as Don Draper.
Yeah.
Oh God, he's so good.
Yeah.
We should probably wrap things up here, but let's get in some final thoughts. We really scratched the surface.
I could keep going on moments for a while.
Well, let's go. Let's keep going.
Can we talk about Dean? We haven't even talked about the Dean. First off,
I know it's embarrassing.
I wanted to bring up his peanut bar rap, which is to me one of the funniest scene.
It has legs. Like, it's still like in TikToks and stuff. People doing stuff with that peanut wrap.
God, and isn't the whole bit that like they won't get paid on time? Like, he dresses up in a payday bar, they won't get paid on time. And then, do you remember this, Reeves? And he starts rapping, and it's like really just white guy rapping, and it just gets totally away from him, and he gets super angry, and he just gets like, he starts yelling about Obama, I think, and then he just gets scared of himself.
Scared of me.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is.
Because I don't swallow knowledge and I spit it for free.
Yeah, and he just like, and he just goes like, I don't know what came over me. I don't know what happened, and he's like freaking out. And then I think it cuts to the intro, right? I think it cuts to the opening.
And then at the end of that episode, it's him trying to do it, and he's like, step to me, don't step to me. I lost it. He can't do it anymore.
That's funny.
There's
like, I think it's like season 1 with the Dean. I'm pretty sure it's season 1 where there's something, I don't remember the context. Maybe it's like they're preparing for a Halloween episode. But anyway, or he's like looking at costumes and he sees this like dog costume online. And he's like, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me. And it's just like this interesting foreshadowing of like, yeah, he like goes off the deep end pretty hard, and like almost every episode is in some insane costume.
And specifically with the dog costume too, he invites the like 2 Dalmatians to the dance.
Right.
Like, I didn't expect both of you to answer the ad.
There's one.
His performance on that of just looking at the computer and being like, I hope this doesn't awaken something in me is just
it just makes me think, were they planning that like ahead of time? Like we should in future seasons, or was it just like they kept rolling with it and it just like naturally went there?
It really does.
There's the one where he's dressed like vertically as like 2 different like things, and he comes in and he has like good news and bad news, and then he's like, I think I went too far with this one. I have to go to the bank today. What do I tell them? That I had good news and bad news?
There's an early bit with Chang. Ken Jeong's whole bit is kind of grating on me these days. I still like Ken Jeong. I think he's very funny. But there's an early episode. I don't even remember what Annie asked. She asked for some like simple nicety from him, like, can you extend this deadline or something? And he just like puts his hands on her desk and just yells at her, have you met me? Like, just like this clear, like, we have spent like 4 or 5 episodes with me, Senor Chang. We know exactly what kind of character I am. And just that line, I just love that line so much of have you met me? It's like, take everything you know about me and I don't even have to write a line. I'm just going to tell you, like, what do you think I would say to that question? I think it's just, and his performance of just like screaming, have you met me is just so funny.
Yeah.
I think Leo and I have talked about a couple times the clip show full of clips that did not happen in the episode. But I think in that episode, is my favorite single line, which is Troy drives an ATV into the study room and says, good news, guys, I spent all my money. And Andy says, Troy, you can't drive that in here. And he says, yes, I can. It's all terrain, dummy.
That's right.
I think it's the same episode where like they show up and they're standing at the shore of some lake and like there's a deflated raft, and he's like, I've seen enough cartoons to know that you pop the back of a raft and it goes faster.
That's right. And everyone's just clearly mad at him, and he's just like digging in his heel.
And the speech at the end of that episode, the classic Jeff speech, but this time it's just snippets from all these different speeches about all these different ridiculous situations. That is just masterfully executed, like self-parody almost.
Yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
In the commentaries for the episodes, because I had at least the first 3 seasons on DVD, and so I would watch the commentaries. And there's like some point where Dan Harmon says they just stopped writing jokes for Donald Glover and then would put in parentheses, Donald says something funny here, because he was like, we would spend so much time coming up with jokes and he would say something funnier every time. So we just said, okay, Donald says something funny.
There's that one bit, I think it was like a cold open where they were putting notches on the desk, tracking stuff. Like Jeff had a zinger, so he like put a mark. and I think Pierce is like had a gay joke or something, so he put a mark, and then it cuts to Troy, and he was like classic, and he like shakes his head, and it shows him putting a notch in the desk, and it just says notches.
Yeah, I remember that. It's really good.
Good show. I don't know if you guys know this.
Good show.
Oh man, the Meow Meow Beans episode is absolutely insane.
Another season 5er. Have you guys? I mean, what's your take on the overall quality of the show? Sometimes I see people tearing down season 5 and especially season 6, and I always leap to defend it. I really feel like every episode of Community is a blessing.
Is it season 5 or season 4 that didn't have?
Well, 4 is the one that Harmon.
Yeah.
Which like rewatching that, it is the weakest crop of episodes, and there's even things that happened in that season that I think Harmon has said like I wouldn't have done, like Jeff meeting his dad and stuff like that. Like if Dan Harmon, I say Dan like I know him, if he had stayed on the show, like he said pretty clearly, he's like, I don't think that would have happened. But like six in particular, I will really come to defense for, because I think even some of the biggest fans like might not have even watched that season at all. And
I think generally when people talk about the quality going down, they kind of mean that they stopped watching, because it did get hard to watch in that they were just like putting it at weird times, and 6 was on Yahoo Screen, a streaming service that only existed to host season 6 of Community and then collapsed immediately afterwards.
And it didn't work. I remember trying to watch it on Yahoo Screen, and it
was the worst like tech I've ever used.
I was so bummed about it. I was excited. Like I was like day one, I was like, yeah, let's watch season 6, and it was stuttering, and it just was like, it was terrible. And I didn't watch it again until I bought the full DVD box set that had all 6 seasons in it, and that's when I finally watched it. Was a rewatch where I just went ahead and went through season 6, and then I've watched it again since then.
I wish they could like put out a Blu-ray of these. I don't know how like licensing works or whatever, but it's like they don't, the streaming is fine, but I like the commentaries. The blooper reels on these are like some of the funniest blooper reels, and you kind of watch it and you like understand like, oh man, this show was like not a tight ship, in that like other blooper reels, they like mess up a line and laugh and then they reset. In Community, it's like 5-minute bits that people are doing that's just like, this is really funny. We know the show came in late and over budget every week.
Yeah.
It seems like they were just always working like way long hours. From everything I've read, is just they were working themselves to the bone to make this thing happen.
And it's
I mean, go ahead, Leo.
It's so touching watching panels with the group getting back together, and they're all just like unequivocally like, this is the best thing I've ever been a part of, and they're just it'll be so treasured to them forever, and that really shows on the show. And it's hard not to feel the same way. Like there's clearly so much love and creativity and energy poured into it.
Yeah,
I know
and it is interesting that like you've seen like not many of them aside from Danny Glover like have really done much since, right?
Donald Glover.
Well,
Donald Glover. Sorry,
I mean,
Annie is like Alison Brie is the star of several kind of like streaming movies and whatever, and I think has done fairly well.
Not to say they haven't done anything, like but it just feels like
the one to me that hurts is I feel like Danny Pudi hasn't really got to do anything. I mean, he's like a voice on DuckTales and stuff, but it's just like...
And he's apparently on Mythic Quest, but there's no way to prove that.
Yeah, he's like a main character on Mythic Quest.
I watched 4 episodes of that, and I could not remember a single detail from it.
He was the accountant. He was trying to make a casino in the game.
Yeah, but it's just like, he's just... It's one of those things where it's like, maybe this is just like the performance of like he was born to play this, and it will always kind of be his defining role. And it's like, you can't name another character like Abed. He really is kind of a show definer.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's true. But he'll always have the meme of talking, was it to Larry King, about socks? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know this, Reeves?
No.
Larry King was asking him, it's like, well, I don't even remember the question, but it was like, what are some of the nice things that you buy for yourself, And And he's like, socks. I like nice socks. And Larry King's like, oh, you don't have private jets or anything? And he's like, Larry, I'm a voice on DuckTales. Like that's my job. I can't be flying around in private jets.
That reminds me of the Larry King interview where he was talking to Ben Schwartz about the Sonic voice. This has nothing to do with Community. But if you're listening to this, go watch that episode and just like, what is his impression of what Sonic sounds like?
Ben Schwartz was probably in an episode of Community somewhere.
I don't think he was, but he should.
Feels
be.
like he should.
I mean, he was on Parks and Rec.
Right.
Yeah.
I watched as one of the episodes I watched tonight, the finale, which I think is actually a very good finale and still makes me very emotional.
Yeah.
But it has one of my favorite like character mixings, which is like, they're all kind of saying goodbye to each other, and like Jeff hugs Abed and kind of steps back and like hugs him again, and it's this moment of kind of like Jeff and Abed just have this very interesting special connection of like Abed is very similar to Jeff in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways is kind of like what Jeff wishes he could be, like is so much more at peace with himself and whatever. And it's just one of those like when you just look at the characters, you don't really think that like those are going to be the ones whose emotional connection gets to you, but they really land it.
My one thing I like about the finale, I love how this show has so many like conceptually funny bits, like saying Beetlejuice 3 times and him appearing,
right?
Abed delivering the baby in the background of an episode, and the conceptually funniest bit to me is suddenly saying the F word in the very last episode. The series finale, they suddenly drop the F-bomb, which is like no other show will ever get to pull that off. But just because it was like suddenly on Yahoo screen and it didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, or Dean is just like, sensitively, Abed, isn't the shape of your brain kind of fucked up? It's just like,
oh man, some other bits I really like. The whole Karate Kid like storyline of Annie trying to quit to help Chang, and just I think it's Mantzoukas, right? Jason Mantzoukas, just explaining to her that she doesn't matter, like that it was just always about Chang's character. It was such a weird twist that I just did not see coming. Maybe it's because I'm not super familiar with the original Karate.
No, I think about Mantzoukas has a line that is now just like married to the Karate Kid to me, where it's just like whenever I think about the Karate Kid, he's like, Ralph Macchio showed up, which is like describing who is the real star, and it's just like, oh, it's so good. It's just clearly it was just like some writer's rant that they were like, they had this conversation about the Karate Kid, and they were like, I'm putting it in an episode.
Right.
They probably had the Good Will Hunting bit. Like that was probably the same thing. Just like there was a whole B plot of an episode just basically complaining about Good Will Hunting's success, and like, it's just such a weird like platform to take of like in an episode. It's like we're gonna complain about Good Will Hunting in this episode.
There's the thing where Jeff is mad at the success of why can't I think of the band? The Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah.
And Annie is saying like BNL has 3 Canadian Grammys.
To your 0.
And he's like, they're BNL now?
Yeah, Dave Matthews Band is another one that like gets that weird sort of, right? Aren't they like all into Dave Matthews Band, and they even have like a musical sting at some point where like Dave
No,
Matthews Band
I now always say if someone brings up Dave Matthews Band, I just say real fans call them Dave, which is just like a thing in my brain from that episode.
Reeves, any other important bits?
I was just, as you guys were talking, I was like, was it season 6 where there's a scene where Chang somehow walks through the back door of a theater and then he's on stage and he starts giving this monologue?
Oh, this sounds really familiar.
They seem really enraptured, and he's just sort of talking about his life, and it seems really good. And then he goes off and somebody convinces him it was like a ghost.
Oh, right. God, that's like a D plot in one episode, right?
But I just remember thinking that was so funny, like just conceptually. And like him sitting down, he just like eases right into it. Like, yeah, I can do this. I can give like a 1-man play all by myself.
One of my favorite things product placement has brought us is Subway in this show when Britta dates Subway himself. And the line that for some reason tickled me the hardest in my last rewatch was Pierce approaching. I forget who was approaching, but they're eating Subway, and he was very accusatory. And he said, "Eating fresh, are we?" I think about that a lot.
It's really good. I love if you ever watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, every now and then he'll reference his time in Community.
Oh yeah.
And like the Subway one, he recently referenced that, which was pretty good. It's just fun to see. Like, I guess he's gone on to do some things.
Certainly.
He has his own TV show.
I always enjoyed seeing him come back though too, because like he was not really around. He was like around.
Yeah,
for
there were a couple.
Season.
I mean, in season 3, John Goodman would just like randomly be in episodes, but he was like filming a movie, and so he would always look different, and they would just have him say like, "I've been going through some stuff."
Right.
Yeah. He had like a goatee and a ponytail.
They just wrote it in. That's so
Right.
smart. God, yeah. The idea of a room temperature. They have a room that's like room temperature.
This is the room.
Yeah. You ever hear? I think is that the line. It's like, have you ever heard of room temperature? This is the room.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. There's the episode where they have the pottery class, and there's the Patrick Swayze poster up on the wall.
Yeah.
And everyone shudders. I don't remember what the poster says, but it's like offensive.
It's
and
just
he
like
waves
a
it
poster of Patrick Swayze with an X through it.
Right, and he's like, just him waving it off me like, I put that up before he died.
Yeah.
Well, and it's Tony Hale who is the pottery teacher.
He's so good.
Yeah.
I really like the it's there are several good Jeff insecurity moments. There's the whole like thing where they're all doing celebrity impressions, and he kind of like loses his mind because like the bar mitzvah boy gets awarded most handsome instead of him. But I really like the thing where he hates that guy. I can't remember his name, who's like the doctor, the kind of like blonde guy or whatever.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but I know what you're talking about, yeah.
But he has a speech convincing them why they should let Chang in the study group instead of that guy, which is like a really kind of strained Jeff speech where he's just saying like, we should take the insanity that we know versus like whatever this guy could be.
Also, another heartfelt bit was when he's running and you think he's going to, Jeff's trying to go win back Annie. Mm-hmm. Right. And then the big reveal is he opens the door and he's at that doctor's house, and he's like, can you like teach me how to be a good person? Like that was one of those moments that I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. All right.
Yeah.
The show has a really good score. Ludwig Göransson, who like went on to like, I mean, he does like big stuff now. I mean, we haven't even talked about the freaking Russos and like, you know, the kind of whole structure of like the MCU is kind of built out of old Community people.
It was always fun to see Community people in like those MCU movies too, just because of that. But I was going to mention that we've spent all this time, and I think we referenced the paintball episode, but really haven't talked about any of those. And I feel like those episodes always got a lot of hype, but I don't know where those paintball episodes sit for you guys. Do you like? I mean, I always liked them, obviously. Yeah. But I think maybe it's because of the hype that it's just sort of like that's the ones. Those are the episodes everybody loves.
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's almost like they're just too cool. Almost like I watch them now, and I'm like, yeah, these are cool, but like I just appreciate the smaller moments so much more in Community. But I still love those episodes, and when they aired, they were fantastic. They were incredible.
And part of why their homages work so well, you know, the fact they're not going for straight parody, is they'll do an homage because it's fun, and then you'll have this action movie paintball episode where something really important happens, like Jeff and Britta finally getting together, or in the second one, Pierce like ending up leaving the study group and him having like a real emotional basis for why he's against everybody at that point.
Yeah.
I also love, I think it's the second one where they kind of went Star Wars where the janitor's just like cleaning the hallway during the credits, and Abed's just explaining to him what happened, and the janitor's just like, "Yeah, sounds like you guys had a really great time." He's like trying to clean all the paint.
I think he's like, you know what? Next year, you guys should just take a hose and just like hose down the walls. Why bother with paintballs? And Abed's like, actually, we did that. Have you been to the library?
That's right.
I'm working up to it or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
That actor's really funny too. He was on Mr. Show sometimes. I don't remember his name, but the guy that plays the janitor, it's very funny.
Two of the best Christmas episodes ever.
I mean,
the claymation
3.
one and then the glue
I even
one.
like the first season where they just have the big fight and Shirley says it's December 10th.
Yeah.
Is like a meme in itself.
Which is my wife's birthday, so I love that. It's just to have that just in my pocket of Shirley going, it's December 10th.
Do you guys get a fight every year and honor that?
That's right. Yeah.
The claymation one is so like sweet and kind of, manages to be funny, but also like be one of like it, it is a good addition to the thing that it is homaging of like those weird stop motion Christmas movies.
That one has a really good like stinger at the end where Abed gets to the center of his, I don't know, moral compass or whatever, opens the present, and then it's Lost season 1.
That's right.
And it's like, no, it's a metaphor for like unfulfilled promise or something like that.
God, jeez, so smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, and then the third season one has the Christmas rap, which is one of my favorite moments of the thing, where Donald Glover really gets to let loose. And then Danny Pudi has to rap after him, which is not doesn't do him any favors.
I don't remember that. I'll have to go look that up. I'm not
really?
sure.
Going deep undercover past, where he's rapping about how he's a Jehovah's Witness, and so he's going to be a secret agent to take down Christmas.
Well, that's the one where like
I remember that. That's weird.
The musical like bug is spreading, right?
Yeah, it's like
it's a Glee episode.
Yeah,
with Karen Killen.
Boop boop a doop sex like that.
Oh yeah, the sexy. I think you're getting diminishing returns on the sexy baby thing. I've heard another random line that pops in my head all the time is from that song when Annie's like, she falls and she's crawling around on the floor and she goes, "Boiny hurdy understandy Christmas." Oh. God.
Oh man.
The Baby Boomer Santa song's funny. That episode's great.
I wrote down we all got chloroformed.
Oh God, yeah.
They're like
another early.
Into...
That's like an early single sort of standalone bit in an episode that I remember watching and being like, this is just incredible.
Yeah, where
like,
they're breaking into a law office, like at Jeff's old place. And they like chloroform the guy, and then they try to wake up at the same time as him and be like, "Oh, we all got chloroform."
Then they chloroform again, I think, right?
Yeah. He's like, "Why is the rag in your hand?"
I gotta go rewatch all of Community now.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, but yeah, it feels like it's about time.
I think it's on Netflix in full at this point, right?
Except the D&D episode, of course.
Yeah,
which is...
they've got Dave Chappelle on Netflix, but that D&D episode is a little too much.
Yeah.
Which there's, I don't know how it works. Couldn't you just cut out that scene?
I don't know. He's in it for like the first part of the episode. Chang is. He comes dressed as the night elf.
Yeah, it's it's a good episode. I remember.
It's a great episode, and unfortunately, it plays directly into the paintball one. So when you watch that sequentially on Netflix or whatever, you're really confused by the setup when Pierce explains like the backstory of what happened there.
Yeah,
it's really
yeah. If you're watching the show, like I mean, I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Like it's an essential part of the canon.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not for the blackface.
Not advocating for that.
Yeah, no, maybe it was a bad taste, but yeah, the rest of the episode's pretty solid.
I like when, and in that episode, Abed has written them all character sheets, but then they just take them at random. And so like Annie is Hector the Well Endowed. It has the bit of Abed being like, I'm really bad at naming things. And Britta's like, I am Bing Bong the elf.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was funny because like the show started and Britta was supposed to be like the attractive woman that she's the hot girl, and then it's just like devolved. She became this like just mess of like just kind of stupid, or just like anytime they wanted to make somebody do something stupid looking or make themselves look like a fool, it was Britta.
What was it in the episode with the different dimensions where she's like keeps dancing out of the bathroom and
pizza, miso hungry.
Miso.
Yeah, I mean, I think she does. Like Gillian Jacobs does a great job. I think she was done a little dirty by the show, and like a lot of the dunks that they're doing on her, I think don't play particularly well, because a lot of them are kind of like, haha, SJW type jokes.
They feel a little mean too.
Yeah.
And it's like, right. Even at the time and with reflection, it's like, well, she is right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Or just kind of, it's like, they don't have like a smart feminist on the show. Like they've just got Britta and she says things in a dumb way. And so then it's like, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like Pierce's character too hasn't aged well. Not that he was always
he
was
supposed to be an asshole.
But I don't know. Sometimes I don't find Pierce particularly funny either. Like he has some good bits, and like I like how he pokes at people sometimes, but
he's a good foil. But yeah, he's not like a beloved character.
I think he's important to the chemistry though. Like when he's gone, you do feel it, that they kind of have to come up with things for them to be against instead of just Pierce being that naturally.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel like you really feel it when Troy leaves. Like,
sure.
His loss mattered a lot more to me than Pierce's, but
yeah. No, that was I mean, the show's still great, and those final seasons are great, but like, yeah, it's certainly the loss most felt, at least for me, for Community for sure.
Do you guys want a movie at the end?
That was actually, I was going to
propose
that as like a final question. I don't. I feel like revisiting, like I feel like it was almost a monkey's paw situation with Arrested Development as like maybe the closest comparison, whereas like I was so excited for that 4th season and was really underwhelmed by it, and I never finished the 5th season like that, which is telling because I love the first 3 seasons of Arrested Development dearly, and I worry that like a movie might be something like that. I think a movie could get like Donald Glover would probably be involved again. Like I think it might be an opportunity to bring everyone back for something fun, but like I would almost rather have the time capsule of the 6 seasons and be perfectly happy with that rather than them sort of test it again.
For me,
what did you guys said?
I think Dan Harmon is still making good stuff is the difference. Like I like new Rick and Morty still, and so I would have more faith in the movie being worthwhile, and I would take any more of it they wanted to give me.
You guys ever watch his D&D?
He wants to do it, I think, right? Sorry, Reeves.
Yeah, he wants to do it.
He does? Okay.
That's why. Well, last I heard, but yeah. Okay. I haven't talked to him recently. I was just going to say, they did such a good job with that finale that, as you guys are saying, it almost feels like you don't need it unless it's some kind of like reunion tour, like in another 15 years or something.
It's also like they had 3 great finales though, and they just kept coming back after having good finales and doing more good episodes. So it's like, it would kind of fit in with what they established. Season 3 finale is like feels such like the end of the show. And then season 5 finale, they're like, if we don't come back, we all got hit by a meteor and died, which is
it works.
He looks into the camera and says, and that's canon, right? Isn't that
right? It's hard because I don't like, I think that Harmon thinks about stories to an extent that like, I don't think he would write something that feels cheap. Like, I think he's just too kind of obsessed with like story structure and whatever to not do something cool and interesting with it. But I also think it would be weird to just see these characters at like the ages that they currently are, to just see them all and have them all be older. Like I might want to just kind of keep them preserved as they were in the seasons that exist now.
Sure. I certainly don't feel robbed of anything.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I would absolutely watch a movie, but I'm not feeling lost without it.
Yeah. It is just ironic that because that 6 seasons in a movie thing was the line from season 2 or something. It goes way back, right?
I think
Not the Cape. I also watched for some reason.
It's just insane that they got to 6 seasons. So it's just such a weird, it became a mantra for them, and then also they got most of the way there. It's crazy.
Like, if you think about all the shows now that people love that don't get 3 seasons, like Community, this show that kind of people didn't watch for its entire runtime, fully getting 6 is pretty nutty.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that wraps it up for us, guys. I love Community. It's a if I were to rank my TV shows, I'm not going to do that now, but probably top 5 for me. I think I really love sitcoms though. Sitcoms are my favorite genre of television. I just I'll eat up a sitcom like cotton candy. It's just so comfortable for me.
Agreed, totally. Marie and I, my sweetie who I live with and love, Community was the first.
Candy?
Yeah, Community was the first show we watched all the way through together, and so many shows since then. Trying new shows, we've just been why isn't every show like Community? Why aren't they just
I've
making
been struggling, honestly. If you guys have, even off mic, have suggestions on good sitcoms to watch. It feels like there's so many shows these days that are serious dramas and so many true crime stuff. It's that's part of the serializing, Netflixing of everything has to be one long story. Yeah, I don't know if that's why everything has to be serious. I would still love comedies. It just doesn't feel like there's just much of that.
It's a very different vibe, but I feel like one of the only shows that have kind of come close to capturing the energy is American Vandal, season 1 and 2, which is just a kind of absolute commitment to a ridiculous bit, and it is very funny and ends up being fairly profound. It's not really sitcom-y, but I watch that show and I feel like it has Community energy.
One long homage.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is a great season.
I'll have to check it out.
I think it'd be fun for us to give recommendations of sitcoms for people who also love Community. I thought Santa Clarita Diet was one of the greats. I think that show is so funny and has such a amazing cast.
I still, because it kind of snuck up on me and became one of my recent favorites. I don't know how recent you consider, but New Girl, I think is still, I love New Girl. Just as terms of just a network sitcom that had a bunch of seasons and just really good, consistent characters that just have these crazy lines that just stick in your brain. It's not like Community outside of the fact that it's good characters. Those are the 2 boxes that you check for those 2 shows. But New Girl, I really love. It's a more recent kind of contemporary sitcom.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't watched a lot of recent modern comedy, honestly. I watched Cheers. You ever heard of this one?
No.
Cheers is kind of a fun show.
And the guy from Good Place?
Yeah,
I was gonna say, actually, The Good Place is a good one. I think of having a really strong cast and completely unexpected twists and turns with what they're doing with the show.
Unexpected and highly addictive is maybe not the right word, but it's really easy to binge, I guess is the term, right? It's one episode constantly flows into the other one. Also, not too long ago, watched Fawlty Towers, which is an older 70s British comedy, but holds up pretty well. I'll just say that.
Inspector Spacetime, big fan.
Wait a second. What we do in the shadows. Very good. Cool. Well, that's it, you guys. That's Community.
What a show.
6 seasons in a movie. Great show. I'm glad we got to get together and chat about it.
Impossible to pick 3 favorites. Scrolling down that list, it's half of these are my favorite.
There's one.
We didn't talk about the video game one.
I know. The VR one, that's another great. I was
Jesus wept.
Hey Reeves, thanks for coming and hanging out.
Anytime, man.
You get a special thank you. Leo and Jacob, they're always showing up and talking on mic.
A regular, you're welcome for your regular thank you.
Yeah. But seriously though, guys, thank you so much. I love Community, love to sit down and chat about it. And now I got to go watch it again. It's time for a rewatch.
Great.
Cool.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Now we do an ending tag over the credits.
Loving it. What is the end theme? Is it those?
No, they do
I mean, they just
skits.
kind of play. Yeah.
Oh. I don't know the rap. I don't know the library.
Troy,
rap.
it's me. I made it into the cartoon world. It's one of my favorites. Oh yeah, or the ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Me
Right,
llamo
yeah.
Tibo en la araña discoteca.
I can't.
See, I don't know the rap. I wish I could pick it up and keep going, but we got to end it here. We're not smart enough to write a tag for an episode of Community. I'm
Can
sorry.
you make the NBC Universal noise, and that'll be the very, very end?
Bum bum bum.
Ben and Jacob, Kyle, and Leo in the morning.
Nailed it.
Thanks so much, everybody.
You've seen the headlines. You know that the media landscape is consolidating. Having truly independent games media is more important than ever. MinMax can exist independently as a place about games, friends, and getting better, but we need your help. The good news is that it's easy. Just click on that subscribe button or unlock a mountain of benefits by going to patreon.com/MinMax with 2 N's. Thanks so much, everybody.